Today, Cricket South Africa was supposed to have its annual general meeting where new leadership would have been elected. But the events that have unfolded in the last few months meant that the AGM had to be postponed. The mere fact that there's an interim board in place is reason enough to delay that AGM. But how is the interim board progressing with governance matters? Well, that's the focus of this afternoon's show. I am Morena Mothupi, and this is Inside Sport. Right, so there's no doubt that it's been a troubled year for Cricket South Africa, from the suspension and the dismissals of officials to questions about transformation and a whole lot more. Today should have been the day of the organization's proposed, or rather postponed, annual general meeting, but with the recently appointed interim board still doing its work, the AGM has been put on the back burner. Our reporter, Morena takes a look at some of the difficulties that have hit the organization since December last year.
Cricket South Africa continues to feel the wave of effects caused by a messy December 2019. But even before the accreditation saga that caused much of the unraveling, CSA was on the back foot. Strained relations with players had come to the fore, while governance concerns were creeping in with the suspension of officials. Events following the subsequent investigation into the then suspended CEO have brought the organization to its knees. The reluctance by the Members' Council to release the Fundutsi forensic report raised eyebrows. In the midst of those troubles, a transformation storm led by former players troubled a sports-mad South Africa, while current players missed out on on-field action as COVID-19 made its presence felt. And as the trouble piled up, officials were fired, while others stepped down. The organization has had 3 different presidents and 3 different CEOs since December last year. The sports minister weighed in heavily. Ultimately, the looming threat of government's hand in the crumbling innings resulted in the board stepping down. While the Members' Council remains in place, an interim board appointed by the minister in October has been tasked with overseeing the turnaround. Johannesburg.
The interim board has been making some telling decisions lately to fulfill their 3-month mandate to turn South African cricket's organization around. Now let's find out how that's going, and we can look back as well at the challenges that the organization has been facing. In a nutshell, how do we get here? And to help me get some perspective, I'm joined by the interim board chairperson, Justice Zak Yacoob, and in studio with me this afternoon is former board member Marius Skuman. A very good afternoon to you, Marius, and to you, Justice. Thank you very much for your time. I'll start with you, Justice Yacoob. 3 months doesn't seem to be a long enough time to make the kind of sweeping changes an organization that has been in turmoil for well over a year needs. So are things going accordingly so far?
Far from it. They're not going accordingly. They're going slowly. And somehow we as a board are being held back at every turn by the establishment itself. And at the moment, for example, we have been told that we cannot have the minutes of the Members' Council until and unless the Members' Council agree, and we've not been able to have those minutes. There's a power tussle between the acting president, who is the president of the Members' Council, and the chairperson, and the requisite cooperation between the Members' Council and the interim board is just not present. One gets all sorts of promises of cooperation, yes, but nothing more. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that the organization is in a very bad way, and you end up getting caught up in a whole range of side issues. Yes. So if you suspend somebody who is earning millions of rands a year, then obviously that person is going to try very hard to protect their own space. Yes. They'll manipulate the circumstances to protect their own space. They'll have false stories to manipulate their own space. They will defend their position every inch of the way, and so on. So these side fires are a bit of a problem. And the third problem is that, as I have said before, the board is not absolutely unanimous. Yes. And one gets the feeling that to get a totally independent board in these circumstances is a little bit difficult. And without mentioning names, those steeped in cricket or who have been steeped in cricket are inevitably influenced by one sector or another. So it's a difficult, toxic environment where it is very difficult to do one's work when a whole range of circumstances is ranged against you. But despite that, we have made a fair amount of progress. We've begun to understand what the nature of the trouble is. We have begun to implement the Fundutsi report, again, against great trouble. So everything we're going to do, any cleaning up exercise, is always met with considerable resistance. And the resistance is always based on the fact that they did nothing wrong. The problem. I just want to bring
Mr. Schoeman here. Apologies for interrupting. I just want to get Mr. Schoeman's outlook and perception of what exactly is happening. You're hearing the Justice, Mr. Schoeman, saying that there is still a lot of power struggles in the organization, for an organization that at this moment is supposed to be self-correcting. Can the interim board, or even the organization in its entirety, members' council included, and the leadership at the helm, even though in an acting capacity, can they get this organization back to where it once was?
Morena, thank you very much for having me, and Justice, welcome to you as well. We haven't had the privilege to meet. The simple answer for me is we have to hope and believe that it can, because if we don't, it's never going to happen. Because what we expect of people is what will happen. What we talk about and speak about people, that's what will happen. Words have power. Thoughts have power. Yes, it can be changed. Justice started off by saying 3 months. You asked him the question about 3 months. You cannot change something in 3 months that have gone wrong over a long period. Everybody talk about December. Since December, there's been this issue. I find that very, very interesting, because it was in December that the independent directors requested an investigation to be done. This thing didn't happen overnight. Every organization has its challenges. And I think that there's a number of things that goes to the core. And for me, the most fundamental basic thing is it's basics that matter. If you get the basics right, the building blocks will be there. And if you have the right people with the right positive frame of mind, and you listen even to the silent voices and make people feel comfortable to share their views, and we listen to everybody, and you collectively then look at a future and believe that you can fix it, then it will happen. I have no doubt that it can be fixed.
I am joined in studio by Marius Schoeman, who is a former CSA board member in his own right, and also just joining us via Skype is Justice Zakia Goob, who is the board chairperson at the moment, the interim board chairperson, the man, along with the other board members, tasked with ensuring that Cricket South Africa, whether he can do it in 3 months, Mr. Schoeman says it cannot be done, or however long it needs to be done, is tasked with fixing South African cricket and making sure that it comes out of the ailing environment it finds itself in, and has found itself in for not even just the last 12 months, but even a period longer than that. The two gentlemen will still be with me when we come back in a short while. This is Inside Sport.